Hello, everyone. Welcome to the International Conference of Medical Doctors. We have Dr. Andrea Amabile joining us today. He is a Yale Cardiothoracic first-year surgery resident. He's from Italy. Dr. Andrea graduated medical school as valedictorian. After that, he went on to get a master's in biostatistics in Italy. He joined the Division of Cardiac Surgery at Yale University, where he led cardiac surgery clinical outcome research group as a postdoctoral associate in the years of 2021 and 2022. He was also part of the research faculty in 2022 throughout 2023. He has authored more than 80 peer-reviewed manuscripts and book chapters, with a focus on robotic cardiac surgery and mitral valve surgery outcomes. His work has been presented in international conferences as well as more than 40 national conferences. This includes the American Association for Thoracic Surgery, the European Association for Cardiothoracic Surgery, Western Thoracic Surgical Association, the Eastern Cardiothoracic Surgery Society, and Minimally Invasive Society for Cardiothoracic Surgery. He also has presented in Heart Valve Society and the Mitral Conclave. He also serves as president of the Junior Researchers Committee of the Association of Italian Surgeons in North America. Outside of work, he is a classically trained pianist. Everyone, please welcome Dr. Andrea Amabile.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the very extensive and generous introduction, I have to say. It's my pleasure to be here tonight.
So we encourage everyone to ask questions for Dr. Andrea during the live. You can leave it in the comment section and we will be getting to them. We're gonna start by asking Dr. Andrea about his journey ending medical school and what he wanted to do after graduation.
Sure. Well, part of my journey, has been already summarized very well by your introduction, but I'm happy to elaborate a little bit more. I'm from Italy. I was born, raised, and educated in Italy in a little town on one of the lakes between Milan and the border with Switzerland. And I've always been very fascinated by medicine, and particularly by cardiac surgery, for a couple of reasons. On one hand, it's a very complex and fascinating discipline that deals with a very unique and broad spectrum of pathophysiologies and diseases. But most importantly, it's a specialty that has the ability to make a huge impact on patients' lives, enhancing their quality of life with a surgical operation. So with that in mind, I applied and got into medical school in a country like Italy that doesn't have a college system. So after high school, I was able to directly start my preclinical years. And throughout that time, I was gradually exposed to the surgical specialties, kind of confirming that cardiac surgery was something that I felt interested in. And on top of that, I was discovering the world of academic medicine and research. And in order, to explore a little bit more that interest, I was fortunate to spend a few semesters abroad, first in France, doing basic science research in congenital cardiac surgery, congenital cardiology, and then in the United States during my last year of training, of the last year of medical school. And when it came to the US, I kind of fell in love with the system for, the quality of the training, the endless academic opportunities. And, I went back to Italy and I was ready to start my postdoc at Yale. That was March 2020, right after my graduation from medical school. But obviously COVID happened and things changed. Unfortunately, wasn't able to move because visas were not sponsored at that time by the United States due to COVID. And therefore, as you mentioned, I pursued a master's in biostatistics while I was working as a COVID physician in Italy. And when my visa finally got approved, I was able to start my postdoc. And 2 years after, here I am, finally starting my residency training. So I feel like that chapter of my life has kind of ended, and now I'm at the bottom of a long and quite steep journey to become a cardiac surgeon here.
Well, Susana Silva from the comments says, congratulations, doctor, for your achievements.
Thank you.
So Then after you finished medical school, you came to the United States and what did you do, a rotation?
Yeah, during medical school, during my final year of medical school, I
Mhm.
did what are called sub-internships or clinical electives.
Okay.
A little different, but there are hands-on clinical rotations where you basically become you're a visiting medical student and become the most junior person in the team. You're able in surgery to scrubbing cases and help with minor tasks, and you are responsible for helping during rounds, presenting patients, and all that kind of things.
So you opted to do the postdoctoral year in research at Yale after you fell in love with the system instead
Correct.
of
Yes. I
pursuing
leveraged
directly
exactly. Yes, I
residency.
leveraged my clinical rotations in the United States to try and find some available opportunities to do clinical research here as a postdoc or research fellow, and I was lucky enough to be offered this opportunity here.
And the application process, is it similar to a job interview, or is it a once a year opening similar to the match for the
That's
postdoctoral?
No, it's like a job opening. There's no recurrency in that.
Mhm.
Of course, like institutions have multiple postdoctoral associate or fellows working in various departments, and but there's not like a calendar that has to be followed. When the job opens, it's either by online posting or by word of mouth, and when I was rotating here, they were looking for a postdoc. They had already interviewed a few people, so they asked me if I was interested in interviewing. They looked at my CV, regular job interview, I would say. Yeah.
So you were lucky that at that time you were actually present on campus.
I think that in that case, yes, having the opportunity to be
Interview in person.
already exposed certainly gave me the chance to get to the job interview, and also allow me to be knowledgeable about what I was signing up for if I wanted to come here and stay here, because having rotated with the team, I had the chance to witness firsthand how things were working, and what the dynamics were, and that really caught my interest.
So one of the questions also is, how were you able to come during your last year of med school to the United States and rotate? Did your university have some kind of understanding with another university? Did you look for that yourself? How was that possible for you?
Sure. I know that some universities do have, I would say, affiliations or reciprocities with United States institutions. That was unfortunately not my case. So the way I approached my search for clinical rotations in the United States was to try and apply what I call the iceberg theory, meaning that ice is 1/10 above water and 9/10 below water, and I applied that to to IMG lives when they try to get to the United States, in the sense that to see that 10% above water, there's a 90% of hidden work that you don't really get to show off, which in my case was just trying to reach out to as many people as possible. I was really persistent in trying to improve myself and boost my CV with experiences and expertise as much as possible at that level, but at the same time to try really and foster my network. And so I was going to conferences and look very carefully at the program and trying to talk to people who were doing research in something I was interested in, and reaching out to them and the team and other people at our institutions. But yeah, I think that again, the iceberg theory, because you have to send 100 emails to get maybe 10 responses, and 8 of them are no, 1 is maybe, and maybe 1 is yes, so never get discouraged by that.
And we know that this USMLE journey and living in the United States is a very expensive process also. So there's an economic factor that goes into account for everyone pursuing this journey. So was your postdoctoral a paid or an unpaid position?
Yeah, I know that is a very hot topic because there are a lot of research opportunities that I heard of that are on a volunteer basis. I was not in a position of being willing or able to accept anything like that. So I was more on the restrictive side with my criteria. We're looking for research opportunities, and my postdoctoral appointment at Yale was fully funded through scholarship. And Yale fundings, yes.
So one of the questions from the audience is if you did the steps and the match process.
Say that again. I'm sorry, you broke out for a second.
If you did the steps and the match process.
If I did
that's
it?
Yes, that's one of the questions from
well,
the
yeah,
audience.
of course,
Because,
being a cardiac surgery resident now, or a resident in general United States, entails that you have to go through the match process. And in order to be able to go through the match process, you must be ECFMG certified, and therefore you must have taken your USMLE exams. So yes, I had to deal with all of that.
And do you consider that having a big gap with training and residency an impediment to matching?
Well, it's a hard question to answer. Of course, I'm not a program director. I don't know exactly, what different programs look for in people, but I can share for sure my experience. I graduated in March 2020. I applied to match 2023, so there's been a 3-year gap between my graduation and the moment I ended up matching. And I have to say that's not been a big problem for me. I think that what really matters is to show what your journey has been about, meaning that, you may graduate med school and apply directly for the match, and that's okay. You may graduate med school, wait a few years and apply, but in those few years, you've done research, you have worked, you have improved yourself, you have taken your SMLEs, you have you have a story to tell, which is valuable and meaningful. I think that people will look at that with interest, or at least that was my personal experience.
So we have a lot of comments regarding different questions about matching to residency programs. I just want to remind you all that we are going to answer them, but we are going to tackle them as best as we can, and there's no right or wrong answer here. So do you think it's possible to match into a good program with only observerships and letter of recommendation from them, and not actual US clinical experience done during medical school?
Yeah, that's also an excellent question. And it's hard for me to answer because the letters, for those of you or of the people who are listening that may be discovering what the journey is about, you have to present minimum 3, maximum 4 letters of recommendation for the application to residency in the United States. And those letters can be from anyone. Could be from the dean of your medical school, one of your professors in your home country, or they could be from United States physicians. I think that the narrative that I was told when I was about to embark in this journey was that letters of recommendation from United States physicians coming out of like hands-on clinical experiences were those who mattered the most, followed by observerships, followed by non-US based quote unquote letters of recommendation. And the reason underneath, I guess, that way of thinking is that for candidates that went through medical school outside the US system, being valued or judged or recommended by a US physician is kind of, quality mark that you give somebody in saying, this person blends very well with the system, knows how the system works, he's very good for my standard. And, it's kind of, I think it's a quality, if you will, measurement. But again, the thing about matching in the United States in residency in the United States is that a good friend and colleague of mine, who's now a cardiac surgeon in Memphis, I remember was telling me when he was a resident, there was a med school, that, there's no, basically the only rule is that there's no written rules. I mean, there are written rules, but you don't really know what factors are going to be taken into account. So again, I would like to underline again the importance of being unique in your journey and advocating for yourself without like really focusing too much on what the narrative is. Because if you're unique in what you can offer and what you've done, I think that people will be willing to listen to your journey and your story.
When you applied, there's a couple questions about your process of application to the match. So people want to know if you considered doing a preliminary general surgery program before applying to categorical spots, and do you see any benefit in doing so?
That is an excellent question. The short answer is yes, I did. The long answer is I applied at the same time to integrated cardiothoracic surgery programs, to categorical general surgery programs, and to preliminary general surgery programs. And I was able to interview in some places and all three tracks, okay? Of course, matching in a categorical position, whether it's general surgery or cardiac surgery, gives you the,
security, maybe.
Security, yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Thank you. The security of, knowing you have matched, and therefore you're gonna train in that place and you're gonna get out of that place as a hopefully board certified general cardiac or whatever surgeon. If you match preliminary, that's not like a second tier kind of, it's still awesome. Like it's still, wow, I made it. I matched in the United States. I'm going to be a surgeon one day. But of course, that comes with the additional burden, I would say, of, needing to go through the process again, because preliminary is only 1 or 2 year position. And then you have to apply to the match again, hoping to match into a categorical position. So I think that for someone who really wants to come to the US and train here, a preliminary position is a great opportunity to put your foot in the door and enter the system. So I would absolutely encourage everyone to apply also to preliminary positions, because they're a great opportunity.
Someone in the audience also wants to know if you believe it's more attractive to do a few years of research compared to doing a residency in their home country to improve their CV.
I can say I personally know great residents who match beautifully in great programs that follow both tracks. One of our chief residents here at Yale did part of his training in his own country, in India, and then he matched into the I6 program at Yale. And he's amazing. There are people who did research here or elsewhere, that I know from here or from elsewhere. I think there are pros and cons. Of course, if you train in your country before coming here, I think the pros are that you're already experienced and therefore people, I assume, like it. The con is that it's hard, I guess, once you're done with your training to become a first-year resident again, because that comes with a lot of, things that you need to adapt and learn and run in a certain way that you may not be used to doing that way anymore because you're a senior resident and graduating resident. That also kind of thing with the con of having, 5, 6, 8 years more than you would have if you apply directly to the United States, and therefore you kind of delay your career, quote unquote, in the United States a little more. On the other hand, I think that doing research comes with the con that, as you mentioned before, you have gap years about, on your clinical resume. But I think it has the huge pro of trying to find your niche of expertise where you want to invest your energy, and it gives you visibility if you're, present at conferences or write papers. And also, and there's statistics about it that are being published. People who do research, IMGs who do research before applying, have a higher likelihood of matching, either at their home institutions where they do research or elsewhere. So there's pros and cons both ways, I would say.
So with a big with the big gap year, is that while it is great that you have experience, just make sure that programs also know that you're still teachable, because it's a little bit difficult. So programs just want to make sure that you're still teachable.
Hello?
After, yes.
I think I lost 10 or 15 seconds because the connection stopped for a second. So I'm sorry. I have to ask you to repeat that question, please, because I couldn't listen.
Sure. I was just commenting that many program directors that I have spoken to, what they want to make sure when you have so many gap years or when you have prior training is that you're still teachable.
Yes.
Because you don't want to come and say, oh, I'm a first year intern, but I already know how to do this because I've done it for 8 years. They want to make sure that they're able to teach you. Yes. And that they're able to make you into a physician that they train in their type of program.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
So which pillars do you think are the most important for non-US IMGs to successfully apply for a surgical residency?
You said which pillars?
Pillars, yes.
Okay. That's a difficult question to answer, because again, I believe that what really makes you unique is your journey, with all that means, like your past, your story, your motivation, what brings you here. One of the toughest questions that you need to answer during the interviews in those 10-15 minute slot that you're granted to talk to faculty is, why do you want to come to the United States? Like, you're from Italy, for instance. It's a beautiful country. Why do you want to come here? And you need to have a convincing answer, right? You need to show that you're mature enough, that you thought about leaving all your support system and coming to a foreign country where you don't speak the language, where you don't know social dynamics, where you don't have a support network the moment you come. Not only that, but you're doing that and enjoying a program where you will train night and day in the hospital under pressure with responsibilities. Like, I think that one of the very important things is like making sure that you have the right motivation to come to the US. And there's no books to read or exams to take. It requires a lot of introspection, I guess. And then on top of that, there are, I think, practical questions that boxes that needs to be checked. Doing well with the USMLEs is allegedly something very important. Now, USMLE step 1 is pass fail. So it's important to pass, not to fail, like pass at first attempt. Step 2 CK is still a score. It's meaning nobody really knows how that's going to change in the future with step 1 pass fail. Maybe matter less, maybe matter more. We will see, but that's important. Another area that is required to be filled in the residency application is your past work experience, past research experience, research publications, and hobbies. And all these areas matter. Like, from the practical standpoint, the interview with the faculty really entails the faculty looking through the little book that they got printed on you with all your documents and asking you questions about, hey, you published this paper, I published on the same topic 15 years ago. Like, tell me, what do you think about this? Or, hey, I heard that, I read that you play the piano. What's your favorite composer? So I think that the pillars are really subjective and objective. And from the objective standpoint, trying to be a strong competitive candidate from, objective measurements, but on a subjective part, making sure that you're really committed of doing this big jump.
So someone in the audience was listening to another talk that you did recently, and they remember that you were emphasizing how important research is, especially when applying to cardiothoracic surgery. Yes. Do you think it's still possible to match without an extensive research CV?
Well, I can't say it's impossible, but I can say it's getting more and more competitive. specialties like cardiothoracic surgery, plastic surgery, ophthalmology, neurosurgery are very competitive also for American medical students. And one of the metrics that during the last few years, as people have chosen to invest on, is do research more and more. And the average number of publications per candidate is trending up over years. So for cardiac surgery, I don't have on the top of my head right now the number of average publication per candidate, but it wasn't zero, meaning that if you apply, you know, almost everyone will have something published, whether it's a case report, a literature review, and people who have, you know, 15, 20, more than 20 abstracts or papers all combined will kind of stand out for that. And also will have more arguments to talk and things to talk about during interviews. So I do think that for an IMG, doing research is almost essential. The people I know who are IMGs who meshed into cardiothoracic surgery, they all had very strong prior research experience.
So Carlos Romero says, hello, Dr. Amabile, congratulations. You have done a lot of hard work. What do you think gave you the key points that the program director chose you to match into cardiothoracic surgery? So what do you think made you stand out specifically?
Well, that's a very, you know, direct question. It's I'll try to do some humble brag. I'm kidding. But I do think that overall, taking the metrics aside, you know, having done my USMLEs diligently, I was able to apply to residency with more than 100 between original manuscripts and papers in general and abstracts. So taking all those metrics and aside, I think truly, you know, the networking that I had. And by networking, I mean my support, my professional network of support, like the mentors, the people I met, and the people with whom I fostered relationship from my rotations onwards, people I've published with, people I've talked and met at conferences, like those people who make phone calls when when the ranking happens. I think that certainly had played a role, because people take recommendation very seriously in the United States, and when you develop a mentor-mentee relationship with somebody, it goes without saying that those people will be there for you when you need them, meaning when you need, you know, their support for something as big as a job interview or a residency application. And I think honestly that, you know, I ended up matching at Yale, which is the institution I were at, which is, you know, a place I'm having an awesome time training at. And I believe that also prior knowledge of the candidate plays a role. You know, I was trying during research time to also volunteer with other faculty and try to be available and take over a research project with them, even if it was outside of my quote unquote contract, you know. So just trying to show how committed I was. I think that played a role as well.
So what attracted you to the Yale program? What made you want to go there or stay there?
Yeah. That's a great question. The reason why, because, you know, just a little bit of background, the match process for those of you who are just, entering in this world, entails that each hospital makes a ranking, or the candidate, but also each candidate makes a ranking on the hospital, right? So for each place you interview at, you decide how they're going to put them in your special ranking. So it goes without saying, you know, people end up matching in a place that rank them high, and they're going to match hopefully in a place that they themselves rank high, right? So the reason why I like the program here at Yale is that first I was able to see it firsthand. Okay, so I knew what I was signing up for. Okay, some programs have great reputation, but you've not been there, so you don't know for sure. Here I knew exactly what I was going into, and I liked it. You know, residents are very well trained. They have the opportunity to combine high volume clinical exposure with gradual responsibility in and outside of the OR. they're able to take over serious research endeavors. Like the academic growth of residents at Yale is incredible. I would say unmatched, to be honest. There are people who pursue PhDs and PhDs. There are people who do research in the lab. There are people who have published more than 150 papers by the end they graduate. By the time they graduate, present conferences, a part of committees. And on top of that, I like the people personally. I like the surgeons. I like the residents. And last but not least, I like New England. I like Connecticut. It's close to New York. It's close to Boston. It's close to Providence. I was able to create my network of friends here. I found my partner, my girlfriend here at Yale. And all those things eventually matter. You know, your network of support, you know, your family that you create in the United States, are things that keep you grounded, that keep you alive outside of the hospital. So everything into account, I think that my choice was multifactorial. But if the question was specifically on the program at Yale, it's for the reasons I mentioned: objective parameters and the people who make the program so outstanding.
And for your future, what kind of physician do you want to be? Do you want to stay in academics? What are your, for now, I mean, that can change along the journey, but where do you see yourself going?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, it's hard to predict. I feel fascinated by adult cardiac surgery, but, you know, I will equally train in thoracic, and, you know, I will take that very seriously as well. But for now, adult cardiac seems something I'm interested in, and I've devoted the last 2 years doing research in robotic and minimally invasive cardiac surgery. It's also something that I feel extremely fascinating and gratifying from the clinical standpoint. So maybe it will be minimally invasive and robotic cardiac surgery. I don't know. We will see, but that's what I feel interesting by right now.
Perfect. Thank you
and
so much,
I would like to
everyone.
stay in academia. Sorry. And I would
you
like
would like to stay. Yeah.
That's the other part of the question I forgot about. Yeah.
You want to stay in academia, which is generally a teaching hospital. You would like to work with residents in the future.
Yes,
maybe
correct.
Pass along your knowledge.
Well, yeah, of course, of course.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dr. Amabile, for coming on. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And thanks for all the questions that you asked.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's been great. I think you guys are doing an excellent job. The IMG is a big community, and we're all driven by very similar interests and kind of desires. And it's really my privilege. And I hope that, you know, people who are listening tonight could take, you know, some maybe inspiration, but for sure could learn from my past mistakes and from the journey that I was very happy to share with them. So thank you so much for your invitation.
Thank you. Okay, we are